morning, ladies and gentlemen. And welcome to the fourth round of the 10th Annual Intercollegiate Debating Competition, featuring a clash of perspectives between the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine, and the University of the West Indies, Cave Hill Campus. The topic upon which they shall be debating is, be it resolved that marijuana should be legalized. I repeat it again, be it resolved that marijuana should be legalized. Allow me to introduce the competing teams. On my right, opposition. On my right is a proposition from Cave Hill. Leading the proposition will be first speaker, Miss Alicia Whale, who is a school in clinical medicine and research from Barbados. Where is it? You're a student? Oh, he's a student, forgive me, in the School of Clinical Medicine and Research from Barbados. She was a member of the victorious Mona team in 1997 and the Cave Hill team, which made it to the finals in 1999. She was adjudged, overall best rebutter last year. She is president of the Debating Society, Cave Hill Campus, and a Rhodes Scholar designate. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Alicia Whale. Supporting Ms. Whale is Ms. Monique Robinson, who is a final year student in the School of Clinical Medicine and Research from Barbados. This is her second time participating in this championship. She's a member of the Cave Hill team, which made the finals last year. She's also a member of the victorious interfaculty team. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Monique Robinson. Supporting both speakers as researcher and note-taker is Mr. Dickon Mitchell, who is a final year student in the Faculty of Law from Grenada. This is his first involvement in the Caribbean Intercollegiate Debating Championship. He's a member of the Grenada Students Association and a member of the Law Society Executive. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mitchell. Taking up the opposition to today's moot is the St. Augustine team, and leading that team is Mr. Mubava Baker, who is a first-year social science major from Trinidad. His campus involvement includes being treasurer of Milner Hall, a member of the Social Sciences Committee, public relations officer of Social Workers in Partnership, Culture and Education, and an officer in the Trinidad and Tobago Students Association. He enjoys reading, swimming, traveling, and meeting new people. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Baker. Second speaker for the St. Augustine team is Ms. Jehan Jack, who is a second-year social science major from St. Vincent. Her campus involvement includes, just to name a few, being a member of the University of the West Indies Debating Society, Computing Society, Tennis Club, Economic Society, and Publications Committee, the draft. She is also a member of the Management Society of the University of the West Indies Faculty of Social Sciences Students Committee, Milner Hall Committee, West Block Representative, and the Vincentian Student Association. Her personal interests include arts and craft, reading, playing lawn tennis, and debating and public speaking. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Jack. Supporting both of these speakers as researcher and note-taker is Mr. Stevenson Hollingsworth, a second-year chemical engineering student from Barbados. His campus involvement includes being a debater and a member of the IBCF and BASCAT. Say it again? It's supposed to be BASAT? Oh, excuse me, BASAT. His personal interests include art, computer graphics design, drama, and playing basketball. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Hollins. The proceedings for today's debate will be as follows. The proposition will lead off with the first speaker speaking for a total of 10 minutes, followed by the first speaker for the opposition also speaking for 10 minutes. Both of them shall be then followed and supported by the second speakers, each of whom will speak for 7 minutes. There will then be a short break of about 2 minutes, in which time both teams shall prepare their rebuttals, and the team shall rebut in reverse order, with the opposition rebutting first for a total of 5 minutes, and the proposition then following up with their rebuttal also for 5 minutes. Now allow me to introduce the judges who will be adjudicating over today's proceedings. Dr. Karen Ann Caldwell, hope I got that correct. Wonderful. Is a professor of chemistry and natural world at the University of Virgin Islands, St. Croix Campus. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Colley. Mr. Lloyd Henry is a secondary school educator at St. Croix Educational Complex. Ladies and gentlemen, say again? Ryan. Mr. Lloyd Ryan. Is that what I said? Apologize. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ryan. Our third judge is Mr. James Mead. Is that right? Jomo. Sorry, it's handwritten, so you have to forgive me. Mr. Jomo Mead, who is an attorney at law. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mead. Now for the criteria upon which they shall be judging today's proceedings. Today's proceedings shall be judged in 2 parts. First, based upon the presentation of the arguments, and the presentation of the arguments shall be judged in 3 categories. First, content, which is broken down into soundness of points and logical development of those points, for a total of 55 points. Second, presentation, which includes audibility and clarity, posture and personality, and command of language, for a total of 45 points. And the third category under which they shall be judged is overall preparedness, which carries a weight of 20 points. The second major category in which they shall be judged is the rebuttal, and the rebuttal will be judged in 2 categories. First of all, teamwork, which is classified as coordination, for a total of 5 points. And second of all, the rebuttal itself, which is broken down into recall and analysis, spontaneity, and the ability to refute your opponent's arguments, for a total of 25 points. Allow me to also introduce today's timekeeper, is Miss Oshana James, and correct me if I made a mistake. Ms. Oshana James shall be timing each of our speakers. She shall also give a signal to the speakers 1 minute before their time has elapsed, and a second signal when their time has elapsed. I remind the speakers that you are penalized for going over your time, so please try to keep your comments well within the stipulated barriers. With no further ado, allow me to introduce the first speaker for the proposition, Ms. Alicia Whale.
Mr. Moderator, honorable judges, worthy colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, be it resolved that marijuana should be legalized. Our restatement of the resolution, using definitions obtained from the Oxford Dictionary, will be this: that the cultivation, possession, and sale of marijuana should no longer be a prosecutable offense. Our philosophy is simple. The reasons for marijuana's continued illegal status are both hypocritical and invalid. We believe that the legalization of this plant in a regulated fashion can actually benefit society. We will plant the following seeds, if I may be allowed, in your mind. 1, there are no valid reasons for marijuana to be illegal. 2, there are medical, social, and economic reasons for its legalization. And 3, we will go on to discuss how we will implement this program and the benefits of a systematic, regulated industry. I will deal with the first issue and the medical reasons, while my second speaker will deal with the social and economic reasons, as well as our plans for implementation. First, let me introduce you to a concept. And this concept is the myths of marijuana. Myth number 1, legalization of marijuana will lead to increased use. Ladies and gentlemen, this is blatantly not so. The Netherlands legalized marijuana in 1976. and the Center for Drug Research at the University of Amsterdam noted that there has been no increase in marijuana use whatsoever over the last 24 years. In fact, trends in marijuana use in the Netherlands are comparable to trends in countries where marijuana is illegal. In fact, it is at the trends in use in the Netherlands have shown that fewer people use marijuana in the Netherlands than they do in the United States, where the drug is illegal. Robert McCon of the University of California at Berkeley and Peter Roter of the University of Maryland compared trends of marijuana use in the United States, Norway, where it is also illegal, and the Netherlands, and concluded that legalizing marijuana has no effect on the level of drug use. In fact, we propose that keeping marijuana illegal can actually contribute to the problem of its use. Prohibition in the 1920s and 30s in the United States of America was a classic example of that. It produced a 28% increase in alcohol use in America. In addition to that, it also spawned gangster crime, ladies and gentlemen, a whole subculture of crime and violence which still exists in the United States today. Myth number 2. Marijuana is a so-called gateway drug that leads to the use of harder drugs. Again, not so. Again, we cite the example of the Netherlands, where their 20+ years of experience has shown that Holland has fewer addicts per capita than Spain, than France, than Britain, than the United States. In fact, the Trimbo's Institute the Trimbo study performed by the Dutch National Institute for Mental Health and Addiction found that fewer young people are becoming addicted to harder drugs than such as cocaine and marijuana. In fact, the average Dutch person who is addicted to what so-called harder drugs is 44 years old. And in 1994, only 0.3% of all Dutch teenagers tried cocaine, as compared with 10% in the United States, where marijuana remains legal. Myth number 3, marijuana is addictive. The American Psychiatric Association, in its Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, edition 4, which serves as the Bible for psychiatric and mental illness, recognizes no marijuana withdrawal syndrome whatsoever. Why? Because it acknowledges that marijuana is not an addictive drug. Some people do claim that they become dependent on marijuana. However, there are absolutely no proven psychological or physiological effects which result when marijuana use stops. Only 0.3% of all Dutch cannabis users are treated in drug outpatient facilities. And it's significant to note, of that 0.3%, over 80% of them have alcoholic problems, ladies and gentlemen. And it is the concomitant use of alcohol and marijuana rather than marijuana use alone which leads to this dependency. Myth number 4. Marijuana is very harmful to the user. As previously mentioned, marijuana is not addictive. In fact, the National Academy of Sciences in the United States has issued the finding that, quote, marijuana has been accused of causing an array of antisocial effects, including provoking crime and violence, leading to heroin addiction and destroying the work ethic of American young people. And these beliefs have not in any way been substantiated by any scientific evidence, end quote. However, when one examines the social and legal and the social effects of tobacco and alcohol, marijuana use pales in comparison. Alcohol and cigarettes, on the other hand, are addictive, as recognized by the American Psychiatric Association. Tobacco causes lung cancer. Alcohol causes myriad problems. Just to name a few: liver cirrhosis, liver cancer, brain injury, chronic dementia, ladies and gentlemen. And 41% of all road traffic accidents in the United States are related to alcohol use. Yet, tobacco and alcohol remain legal, and marijuana is demonized. I ask you why. This leads me to my second concept, what I'm going to call the politics of pop. I'm going to juxtapose for you the situation of marijuana and the situation of alcohol and tobacco. Marijuana is grown primarily in the Caribbean and in developing countries. But who markets alcohol and tobacco? Large multinational corporations who have at their disposal millions. And what do they do with their millions? They contribute it to the campaign coffers of the lawmakers in Washington and throughout the world, ladies and gentlemen. And we suggest that because no one speaks for the marijuana farmer, it is why he continues to be marginalized. And we believe that marijuana will be legalized. But when? When Philip Morris and the other tobacco companies decide, hey, this isn't a bad idea after all. And they used their Washington lobby to lobby the lawmakers to make marijuana legal, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I'm going to go on to some of the medical reasons why marijuana should be legal. Researchers in 6 different state-sponsored research programs. Note, ladies and gentlemen, state-sponsored, not sponsored by the organization to make marijuana legal, but state-sponsored research programs determined that smoking marijuana is an effective antiemetic, i.e. a drug that prevents one from vomiting, and is more effective than conventional antiemetics. The National Institutes of Health in the United States quoted that marijuana increases food enjoyment and the number of times that people eat food, which to you and me who are healthy, average people may not seem like something significant. To an AIDS-positive patient who is suffering from the AIDS wasting syndrome and who has no appetite, these appetite-stimulating properties can make the difference between life and death. The National Academy of Sciences actually recommended that persons who are unresponsive to normal or to the average AIDS treatment should actually use marijuana for stimulating their appetite. In 1994, a report from the Australian federal government, said that there's evidence of the efficacy of marijuana in treating glaucoma patients, and actually is more effective for treating glaucoma than traditional glaucoma drugs. In 1998, the House of Lords in England actually recommended the use of marijuana for painful muscle spasms and symptoms of multiple sclerosis, and indeed, ladies and gentlemen, went on to recommend its legalization. Now, why marijuana over other drugs? It is true other drugs are out there to treat glaucoma, other drugs are out there to prevent vomiting and nausea, but we suggest that glaucoma is more effective than these drugs. The studies we have cited to you prove that marijuana is more effective. And, more importantly, marijuana is one of those very few and very rare drugs that is effective without side effects. There has been absolutely and totally no documented case anywhere of anyone ever overdosing on marijuana. In fact, it would take 18 kilograms of marijuana smoked over a 20-minute period to cause death, ladies and gentlemen. And I don't know how many of you all have ever tried marijuana, I'm not going to ask, but the fact of the matter is, no one sits down and smokes 18 kilograms of marijuana. What is the purpose of the law, ladies and gentlemen? The law is designed to punish the people who are guilty and do harm to society. The law is not designed to punish those innocent people, those terminally ill people who seek relief from their pain and their suffering in the only way they can. We believe, as a proposition, that marijuana should be legalized. Thank you.
Ms. Wade made her presentation in 9 minutes and 21 seconds. We will now hear from the first speaker for the opposition, Mr. Medgar Evers.
Good morning, Mr. Moderator, distinguished judges, noteworthy opponents, dedicated colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. The legalization of marijuana is a ludicrous and a ridiculous idea, to say the least, given the many health and social impacts on the society which we, the opposition, will show to you. Therefore, be it resolved that marijuana should not and should never be legalized. Marijuana is a member of the hemp family and is a psychoactive plant. The effects of marijuana use in the Caribbean and the US are alarming, to say the least. Permit us to educate you in the harmful effects of marijuana. And yes, there are harmful effects to marijuana on the mind and the body. This information comes to you from the Marijuana Update 1996 by Dr. Janet D. Lapine. Number 1. Marijuana causes acute toxic psychosis, panic attacks, flashbacks, delusions, depersonalizations, hallucinations, paranoia, depression, and uncontrollable feelings of aggression. Marijuana triggers attacks of mental illness, such as bipolar, manic depressive, psychosis, and schizophrenia. It has been shown that marijuana users are 6 times more likely to develop schizophrenia than non-users. Marijuana impairs perception, judgment, thinking and memory, and learning. Memory defects may persist 6 weeks after the use of marijuana. Marijuana causes both dependency and, yes, addiction. Marijuana is indeed an addictive drug. An addictive use is defined by impulsive, repeated use in spite of adverse consequences. Marijuana effects include tolerance, leading to dependence, and then inability to cease use. That is what addiction is. There are significant negative effects on prenatal marijuana exposure on the performance of children in a standard intelligence test. On average, children exposed prenatally to marijuana will have lower IQs compared to children who are not exposed, even when the effects of various environmental factors are adjusted for. And that source, ladies and gentlemen, is the Neurotoxicology and Terontology, 1998, written by Mr. Day. Marijuana smoke produces air passage injury, acute and chronic bronchitis, and lung inflammation. In considering the legalization of marijuana, we cannot ignore these harmful effects and must never lose sight of the impact of these effects on our society at large. That hallucination and impaired motor skills are evident effects, and the potential impact on driving, operation of precision machines, and critical decision makings are ipso facto. Ladies and gentlemen, consider with me for a moment. Going into the operating room, knowing that your surgeon, or not even knowing that your surgeon who is operating on you is a marijuana user, and he hallucinates. The man who is driving behind you in your car or taking your children to school is a marijuana smoker, and he has lost his psychomotor skills. Marijuana also impairs coordination, perception, and judgment. It is the cause of many accidents. A study of 1,023 trauma victims revealed that marijuana had been used 34.7% and alcohol had been used 33.5% of the times, showing clearly that marijuana is used more than alcohol, one, and secondly, marijuana use causes more accidents than alcohol. This is similar to another report which says that 36.8% of incidents of marijuana use reported fatal injuries to drivers in California. And a roadside study of reckless drivers not believed to have been impaired by alcohol found that 45% of them tested positive for marijuana. There is no rationale to the legalization of marijuana unless we have a callous disregard for the condition of human life and the society in which we know. Are we to legalize marijuana for full or medicinal and pharmaceutical use? We say certainly not. If marijuana were legalized for medicinal and pharmaceutical use, then strict regulations as to the appropriate use of the drug must be established. More questions are exposed, ladies and gentlemen, when we start to look at this. Questions like, 1, how will there be adequate regulation of crop cultivation and processing? Number 2, we already pay so many taxes. Do we have the manpower to expeditiously control and police those employed in marijuana trade if it is legalized? Mr. Moderator, the logic is simple. If now marijuana is illegal and we cannot control it in some places, how can we regulate, invigilate, or prosecute workers in the industry for the illicit use? And what of the black market that would emerge again from the illicit sale of marijuana? If one decided to fully legalize marijuana where it is possible for all and sundry to cultivate and use marijuana, the ramifications of such implementation will be nothing short of catastrophic. In light of the already social problems of alcohol and tobacco, why would we want to add to these the complications of a highly yet addictive drug? By fully legalizing, we effectively remove the barriers that may have been preventing large number of persons from ever starting to use the narcotics. There will be a significant increase in the number of users, and given the expensive nature of drug rehabilitation and medical expenses, one can see the potential load on the economy of any country that legalizes marijuana, despite the high income from taxation of the industry that legalizers may be purported. The negative effects of the drug can lower productivity, since marijuana users, as aforementioned, are unable to efficiently execute procedure with required mental activity. Mr. Moderator, ladies and gentlemen, my colleague will further expand and expound on the reasons why we should not legalize marijuana. But just to give you something to think about, in 1975, in Alaska, the Supreme Court of Alaska found that marijuana was legal and it was a constitutional right of all Alaskans to use marijuana in their homes, in the privacy of their homes. Subsequent to that decision, use of marijuana doubled among teenagers. It was so catastrophic that they immediately began a protest to repeal such a decision, and now that decision has been repealed. I thank you.
Mr. Baker made this presentation in 8 minutes and 11 seconds. We shall now hear from the second speaker for the proposition, Ms. Monique Robbins.
Mr. Chairman, honorable judges, most worthy opponents, esteemed colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I bid you good morning. I'm inviting you today to take a journey with me. The year 2030, the location, the Caribbean. Our children are all in schools. It's about 9 o'clock in the morning. An island of May, workmen are busy constructing model homes where shanty towns once stood. Everywhere, devaluation is a faint memory, and life, contrary to what is proposed by the leader of opposition, is good. Everything just angry. An impossible dream, you ask? We, the proposition, ladies and gentlemen, say a resounding no. My Prime Minister has already clearly outlined the medical and political reasons why marijuana must be legalized. Her approach of necessity was general, but I propose to take our arguments a bit further and to demonstrate clearly to you the economic and social benefits, no pun intended, by legalizing ganja, particularly in our Caribbean nation. Also, we wish to briefly propose how we will implement marijuana legalization. The UN World Drug Report 1999 states, and I do quote, the marijuana trade generates $400 million in revenue each year and accounts for some 8% of all international trade. It has also been carefully documented that most of the marijuana crop has been grown and is grown in the Caribbean and Latin America, and we are the main suppliers of this presently banned substance. Ladies and gentlemen, we, the proposition, put it to you that it behooves these two presently economically strapped states to legalize marijuana and cash in on the marijuana trade. Marijuana would prove a lucrative alternative cash crop in this region, and this becomes even more relevant when you see the marginalization of the traditional crops like sugarcane and bananas on the international world markets. revenue generated by marijuana could then be channeled into our schools, youth initiatives, healthcare, and social services. By legalizing ganja within the Caribbean, the leaders of our region would be making a serious investment in the future, not the detriment, but the future of the youth and people of our Caribbean region. Additionally, the amount of money presently being poured into enforcing anti-marijuana legislation approaches monumental proportions. In Barbados alone, our bill comes to about $4.0 million per annum to uphold what my Prime Minister has already shown our laws based on false premises of addiction, dependency, and general human demise. The money spent upholding these fallacious, unfounded laws could be channeled better into programs and institutions to again promote the improvement of our Caribbean life. I challenge the opposition, ladies and gentlemen, I challenge them today to show us any concrete proof that legalizing marijuana will not profit the Caribbean financially. I suggest to you that they cannot. In addition to the economic benefits we stand to gain, there are also several positive social ramifications from legalizing marijuana, not least among which is the eradication, not the propagation of the drug barrel culture. By keeping marijuana illegal, we have essentially placed in the hands of unscrupulous individuals a powerful money-making source. People who have proven that they are willing and capable of using illegal means to protect their illegal trade. With legality, we take the trade off the back streets and place it under the auspices of responsible representative governments. Issues about the finer points of distribution and even more delicate or more involved topics move into the controlled environment of the boardroom. We would have then, to a large extent, taken back our streets from the hands of those who currently terrorize us. We have therefore shown, beyond a shadow of any reasonable doubt, that there are no reasons why marijuana should remain illegal, and furthermore, there are several compelling arguments to suggest its need for legalization. The next logical question then is how we propose to implement this. The government, ladies and gentlemen, suggests legalization with regulation. Legalization with regulation. As it presently exists, the illegal marijuana trade has 1, no quality control and no form of regulation whatsoever. The product procured varies from dealer to dealer, and indeed the number or amount of impurities it may contain. With legalization, the trade of marijuana will be subject to government regulation. Marijuana will be like any social drug, for example, alcohol or tobacco, and will be subject to certain stringent regulations about the impurities it's allowed to contain, and the buyer is then ensured of the best possible product. I turn my attention now to the case presented by our opposition, such as it was. The leader of the opposition stood here and said that marijuana leads to deleterious effects. This is not so. Ladies and gentlemen, the proposition stands firmly convinced that marijuana must be legalized. Our mandate states that this is the vehicle for Caribbean financial autonomy and a vehicle for the progress of the Caribbean nation. Choose legalization, ladies and gentlemen, for the future of our region. I thank you.
Second speaker for the proposition, representation in total of 6 minutes and 28 seconds. We shall now hear from the second speaker for the opposition, Ms. Jehan Jack.
colleague has shown you the impact of marijuana on the individual and the society. He has shown that it is irrational to legalize a drug that is known to have so many negative effects. It is now my task to show you that the supposed medicinal value of marijuana has little scientific backing and is sketchy to say the least. Mr. Moderator, in view of the possible toxic effects of long-term use, marijuana cannot be recommended for medicinal use. Marijuana contains some 450 different chemicals, some psychoactive, addictive, and dangerous. Interestingly, not one American Health Association accepts marijuana as medicine. Instead, statements issued by these organizations express concern over the harmful effects of the drug and over the lack of solid research demonstrating that they might do more good than harm. Supplementary to the discourse of my colleague, marijuana also affects the immune system by impairing the ability of T cells to fight infections, which makes the user more susceptible to other diseases. 2. Babies who are born to women who use marijuana during pregnancy. These babies are smaller and are more likely to develop other health problems. In 1995, ladies and gentlemen, after a decade of research, the Department of Health and Human Services in the United States of America held its first research conference on marijuana. At the conference, more new information about the long-term dangers of marijuana use was released. Some major findings included the following. 1. Peter Fryer, PhD, from the Carleton University in Baltimore, found that marijuana use during pregnancy has harmful effects on children's intellectual abilities a decade or more after they were born. So, ladies and gentlemen, do we really suggest that we willingly sacrifice our human and intellectual capital under the false guise of medicinal value? Secondly, Roger Rothman, PhD, and Robert Stevens, PhD, both from the University of Washington, show that marijuana can put a serious chokehold on long-term users who try to quit. Therefore, not only is the risk of possible addiction very high, but also there is a distinct possibility that long-term exposure to marijuana can encourage the use of other potent drugs like heroin and cocaine, to name a few. The American Medical Association policy is that marijuana, or cannabis, is a dangerous drug and as such a public health concern. The side effects of marijuana as it interacts with some prescription drugs are not known. However, some drugs like antabuse shows negative interaction with marijuana, inducing toxic psychosis. This effect was unanticipated and more research must be done in order to document possible drug interaction with marijuana. Mr. Moderator, while one cannot fully predict exactly what our society would be like if we change the law to make easier access to marijuana, I believe, for reasons previously given, that the result would be a sharp increase in use, a more widespread degradation of the human personality, and a greater rate of crime and accidents. If I'm right, and the legalizers prevail anyway, then we have consigned millions of people, hundreds of thousands of infants, and hundreds of neighborhoods to a life of oblivion and disease. To the lives and families destroyed by alcohol, we have added countless more destroyed by marijuana. Human character is formed by society. Indeed, human character is inconceivable without society, and good character is less likely in a corrupt society. Will we, ladies and gentlemen, in the name of an abstract doctrine of radical individualism, and with the false comfort of suspect predictions,
decide to take the chance that somehow individual decency can survive amid a more general level of degradation? I think not. I wish to believe that we are too rational for that, whatever others may be. I conclude by emphatically opposing the topic. Marijuana should not be legalized. Thank you.
Ms. Jack made her presentation in 5 minutes and 23 seconds. At this point in time, we will have a 5 minutes and 34 seconds. At this point in time, we shall have a 2-minute pause while the teams prepare their rebuttal. I encourage you to keep the noise level down while they work. Judges ready? At this point in time, I'd like to invite the first speaker of the opposition to make his rebuttal. I remind you that you have a total of 5 minutes.
Good afternoon once again, ladies. Good morning once again, ladies and gentlemen. The proposition has painted a fantasy island for us where the land of utopia would exist if marijuana was delegalized. We of the opposition think not. In fact, we know what some of the points that they made. For example, 1, marijuana is not addictive. Ladies and gentlemen, that is not true. Marijuana is psychoactive. Secondly, they argue that marijuana is not harmful to the users. That is not true, and we have shown this. Thirdly, they argue that marijuana is not a gateway drug. Not a gateway drug, ladies and gentlemen. Let me read for you from the report 1994 on cigarette, alcohol, marijuana, gateway to illicit abuse, prepared by the Colombian University Center on Addictive and Substance Abuse, which found that children who use marijuana are 85 times more likely to use cocaine than youngsters who have never tried marijuana. Secondly, this same statistics found that younger individuals who use marijuana heavily are more likely to experiment with illicit drugs and become addictive as adults. 60% of children who smoke marijuana before age later turn to cocaine. Not addictive, not a gateway drug? I think not, ladies and gentlemen. Another point which, as we were sitting on the opposition bench, I thought that the opposition was leading to our side when the leader of the opposition made mention to the concomitant use of marijuana and alcohol. She, in her summation, stated that a gentleman was admitted into health clinic because he used both alcohol and marijuana. That is just our point. That marijuana use, even with alcohol, without alcohol use, it is a dangerous substance to society. And they have agreed with us, and we thank them for that argument. Moving right ahead, ladies and gentlemen. Medical research. One of the points made by the proposition is that medical research states that marijuana is not addictive, and not non-addictive, sorry. Marijuana use has medicinal value to the society. The National Institute of Health from the United States of America states that there is no clinical evidence which demonstrates that smoked marijuana is good medicine. The National Institute of Health examined all research on marijuana and found no clinical evidence that smoking marijuana is superior to currently available therapies. Therefore, the same ingredients that are in marijuana as it is presently, they are found in other therapies, and the use of marijuana is not necessary. Going ahead. Ladies and gentlemen, they talk about legislation in terms of looking at Netherlands, looking at Amsterdam, which are both societies far removed away from us because they have their different socio-economic standpoint, they have the different mores, they have the different values. We looked at Alaska, which is a lot closer to us within the Western Hemisphere, and as I said before, Alaska's legislation repealed what they did in terms of the legalization of marijuana because of its harmful effects upon the society in which they live. There's another point that brought me great discomfort when I heard it proposed by the proposition. They were saying that alcohol has a lot of harmful effects on the society. Smoking has a lot of harmful effects on society. With these two industries which cause so great societal damage, they are suggesting the introduction of a third one. What we are saying, ladies and gentlemen, is that is not necessary. They should have argued instead, de-legalize smoking, de-legalize alcohol, and forget about marijuana. Ladies and gentlemen, there are so many points that I wish to rebut about them, but time will not permit me. The last one I would like to say, though, is that any economics student will tell you that price is determined by demand and supply. If the demand of marijuana falls, the price of it will fall, and revenue will fall also. Thank you.
The opposition made their rebuttal in 4 minutes and 45 seconds. We now invite the proposition to respond to their rebuttal.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, good morning. We are here to argue science-based medicine. Science-based, current medicine, not the outdated reports with which the opposition has come here to argue. They have based their arguments on the use of marijuana. We wish to make this point. Keeping marijuana illegal does not prevent it being used, obviously. They will not support all sorts of harmful effects of marijuana and these psychoactive effects. And we wish to state this. There's psychoactive effects to many drugs, ladies and gentlemen. If we were to make illegal all drugs which have any psychoactive effects, we would have nothing to prescribe to our patients because all drugs have side effects. They made the statement that marijuana leads to schizophrenia. This is absolutely and totally not true. Having had to suffer through schizophrenia and the causes, I can tell you, while schizophrenic patients are more prone to use marijuana, it does not cause schizophrenia. They insist and insist and insist that marijuana is addictive. But we must also insist that marijuana is not addictive. The one institution which prescribes addictive medicine and what drugs are addictive, the American Psychiatric Association, has stated categorically marijuana is not addictive. And we wish to back this up with the fact that 85% of persons who use marijuana for the first time use it once and only. They mentioned antenatal marijuana exposure. There is no proven fetal marijuana symptom at all. And I challenge the opposition to present me with evidence to support this. Yes, it is true. We don't recommend that you use marijuana in pregnancy, but we don't recommend that you use aspirin either, ladies and gentlemen. They talked about the respiratory effects of marijuana. We wish to point out these are far less marked than the respiratory effects of tobacco. And additionally, the respiratory effects of marijuana are largely due to the impurities of marijuana. And we believe by legalizing and regulating marijuana, we can remove these impurities and thereby reduce these side effects. They asked if we had the manpower to deal with the marijuana trade, and we say yes. If we can take the economic investment that we now channel into suppressing marijuana and use it to legalize and to police the trade, yes, we do have the manpower. They talked about the black market that would emerge if marijuana were legalized. Now, I'm a little confused. I thought black markets emerged when things were illegal, not if they were legal. And we believe that if we legalize marijuana, we would eradicate the black market, and we can use those financial resources for the betterment of society. They talked about it can lower productivity. We quoted to you extensively from the Dutch experience. The ones that, I don't know how Alaska gets to be closer to our experience than Amsterdam, but I'm not going to touch that. We quoted to you the Dutch experience, ladies and gentlemen. The one country which has legalized marijuana for 20 years. And Dutch students score highest, ladies and gentlemen, on international science and math competitions. So much for lowering productivity. They went on to say how it was irrational to legalize a drug with so many side effects. So many of our medications have side effects. They talked about the negative interaction of marijuana with anti-abuse. Now, anti-abuse is a drug which is designed to stop people from drinking alcohol, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to interact. And as I was saying, all of our medications interact with so many of our medications. It's a fact of life of pharmacotherapy. Ladies and gentlemen, they have not in any way taken issue with our economic arguments, the benefit legalization of marijuana will bring to our communities, and the funds that we could then use to source and to spend on benefiting our communities and expanding our communities and helping our young people. They've cited outdated and completely irrelevant data because the National Institutes of Health, in its most recent paper, does recommend the use of marijuana as an antiemetic, as an anti-glaucoma drug, and actually recommends its use against wasting syndrome in AIDS. So I suggest they check their references and perhaps use the internet or some slightly more updated method of reference. Ladies and gentlemen, these people, and the opposition rather, have failed to address our fundamental argument that marijuana's continued legalization is hypocritical because of the legalization of tobacco and alcohol, and they have not addressed any of the benefits which we have said would accrue, namely the economic and social benefits from legalizing marijuana. I thank you.
Ms. Wade made her presentation. Ms. Wade made her rebuttal in a total of 4 minutes and was 23 seconds? 26 seconds. 4 minutes and 26 seconds. I will now, for the benefit of the judges, recap the times utilized by the various speakers. First speaker for the proposition made her presentation in 9 minutes and 21 seconds. First speaker for the opposition, Mr. Baker, made his presentation in 8 minutes and 11 seconds. Second speaker for the proposition, Ms. Monique Robinson, in 6 minutes and 28 seconds. Second speaker for the opposition, Ms. Jehan Jack, in 5 minutes and 34 seconds. And for rebuttals, Mr. Baker in 4 minutes and 45 seconds. And Ms. Wade in 4 minutes and 26 seconds. At this point in time, I'll ask an official to escort the judges to their deliberating room, following which we will open the floor up for discussion on this topic. Is there an official to escort the judges?
Can you maintain what you're supposed to do? Can you maintain what you're supposed to do?
What?
Is that your bag? I would like to be first to commend both teams on the exceptionally high quality of their presentation and also on their discipline in staying well within the parameters of their time. I think they're deserving of a hearty round of applause. to be one of the tightest debates of this session. I look forward to the judges' adjudication. At this point in time, I open the floor up. People who have comments, questions, and even positive criticisms. Again, I remind you that you're not to take pot shots. Pardon the pun. You're not to take shots at the speakers. Please direct your questions and comments through me, and if they choose to respond, they may do so. Okay, did I see a hand somewhere? Yes, ma'am.
First of all, I would like to ask, what is marijuana and from where marijuana came from? Where does it get from?
What did I say?
As far as I know, it's a plant.
It's a plant.
No, turn off the video. Just hit the red button inside.
It's a plant.
Good morning, team, ladies and gentlemen. I was drafted to make these brief comments. I will be brief. First, I'll begin with I'll make some general statement before I say who the winners are. The panel of judges thought that both teams were excellent. Both teams made a proposition, and the proposition was well supported by statistics and other treaties or whatever that was cited. It was the unanimous decision of the judges, however, that the UB team, Barbados, created a proper nexus between the proposition cited and the statistical studies to support those propositions, even though, as we said, both teams were excellent. And because of the proposition and the supporting connection with evidence, we adjudged the winner to be the U Barbados. Now, additionally, we were asked to adjudicate who were the best debater and the best rebuttal. This is what we call a clean sweep. The best debater was Ms. Whale. And Ms. Whale, being the person who she is, she was also adjudicated the best rebuttal. Other judges would like to make any other general comments. But as I said, God, both teams were excellent.